The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, March 10th, a new week, a new series of shows. I'm not traveling this week. We should be on schedule. Everything goes to hell next week, but this week we're good. Monday, March 10th. For those of you invested heavily in tech stocks, not quite a Black Monday, but a pretty dark one. NASDAQ down 3.7%. I haven't seen individual stocks, but I can only imagine what's happening to some of those Magnificent Seven stocks. I'm sure they're taking a beating right now. But yes, there we have it. Trump economics is kicking in, and we're getting it. We'll get to maybe the cause of this. I hate to comment on daily movements of the stock market, but this one might have a cause. And the other big thing that's happening right now as we speak, didn't plan on this, it's actually messing me up in terms of today's show, is that Twitter is down. I mean, what's up with that? It's down. I can't reach it. Can you guys get Twitter? Check. Go to Twitter. You tell me maybe it's just a boycott of Puerto Rico, or maybe just a boycott of Iran in Puerto Rico. But let me know if you get Twitter. Right now, it looks to me like it is down, crashed. Don't know why, what the hell is going on. But I rely on Twitter. I don't know how I can get past. I'm getting just the last 20 minutes. I'm developing Twitter withdrawal syndromes, X withdrawal syndromes. So it's a challenge for me. Oh, Jennifer has Twitter. Jennifer must have an in with Elon. Interesting. Mary has Twitter, so it's like a selective. It's like Carl Meisenbach and me don't have Twitter. We've been targeted by the Twitter gods. All right, I'm not sure what to make of it, but I do not have Twitter. It basically says there's a host error at twitter.com, yeah, I just get the circle of death. Elon doesn't like there's a article today out. God, I didn't catch where it is at. There's an article today out about how Elon is not an Ayn Rand hero. He's an Ayn Rand villain from Atlas Shrugged. And it's actually written by somebody who knows this stuff. So I don't know who this person is, but from the example he gives from it's actually quite good. All right, let's see. Carl has Circle of Death too. Ian says it was a decent article. It was not bad. A few flaws, but not bad. Let's see. Yeah, so I cannot explain why X is down. I have no idea. But we might have an explanation for why the NASDAQ is down as much as it is. And generally, I mean, the S&P is down 2.4%. The Dow is down 1.4. Russell is down 1.7. So basically, all of our portfolios are down. Every single one of you is my guess, unless you're all invested in Japanese stocks, because the Japanese stock market was up earlier today. FTSE was down, so even European stocks are down. And that is because Donald Trump over the weekend said basically, or implied, or kind of didn't commit to the fact that we're going into recession. And it was like, yeah, we might be going into recession. And I think that the narrative that developed at the end of last week, that, yeah, maybe we need a recession in order to restructure the U.S. economy, or maybe a recession is not that bad, or maybe a recession will help the working class. We heard that one even. Maybe a little bit of economic slowdown hurts the rich guys, but everybody else will be okay. And so all of this talk about the market responding to the tariff uncertainty and just the general economic uncertainty created by Trump is generating has generated these rationalizations that are coming out of Washington, and that is leading markets to think that Trump doesn't care about a recession. He's got 4 years, so if there's a recession this year, what does he care? Although there are midterms in 2 years, that he doesn't care that much, and so be it, right? There's an attitude within his administration of so be it, we need it. It's much more important that we get the tariffs and we bring manufacturing back and we do all that stuff than anything else. So I think the market is saying, yeah, this economic team doesn't seem to care about recessions. You know, they're going to let it happen. We thought he was bluffing with tariffs. We thought he was bluffing about a lot of the economic, craziness. And it turns out he's not. And that is why the stock market is down since the beginning of the year. It's down since the election. All that gain, I mean, the stock market went way up when Trump was elected. There was a lot of anticipation that Trump would be good for the economy. And basically over the last month, all of that is dissipated. All that positive views have dissipated. And a realization has come to the forefront that Trump is indeed, well, maybe not quite in these terms, these are my terms. Indeed, Trump is as ignorant of economics as Yaron has been saying all along, and that Trump doesn't really care. He doesn't really care. He cares about getting his enemies. He cares about doing what he promised, so his MAGA people love him. But he in terms of caring about America, about the American people, about the American economy, about your livelihood, he doesn't really care. Isn't it interesting that in Michigan and in California, blue states, at least in terms of governors, X is working, Twitter's working, and in Texas and in Puerto Rico is not a red state, but Texas is, it's not working. There's a clear discrimination here against those of us who believe in free markets. Interesting. All right, so I'm watching the markets with trepidation, but they have it. Oh yeah, we have a short show today because I have to teach a class, and you guys' clocks changed, and I stood still. So suddenly I find myself in East Coast time. Usually I'm an hour ahead, so my schedule suddenly got compressed. So we will do that's why I started early today, and we will do a short show today. We're going to talk about the new leadership of the Liberal Party in Canada, the new Canadian Prime Minister. He will take the reins from Justin Trudeau, I think today, this week. It will. We'll talk about the kill switch, the fact that different militaries around the world are now, kind of wondering, does the U.S. have a kill switch on all the weapons they sold to these countries? We'll talk about a prediction or a strategy that Alexander Dugin made in 1997 in his book, and how accurate that is to the reality of today. Dugin, I've done a whole show on Dugin. Dugin is, he's part of whatever Russia's doing. He might be the strategist behind it. We'll talk about USAID, big changes to USAID, maybe good ones. We'll talk about Trump's enemies and what he's doing about them. A little bit about immigration, and then an example of the new swamp. The new swamp. All right. Let me remind you, ask questions. I see you guys are already starting, and Sylvanos is even doing stickers. Thank you, Sylvanos. So ask questions, shape the show, help support the show, listener-supported show this is. And Tom likes my shirt. Thank you, Tom. Let's jump in with news out of Canada. So the Liberal Party basically had their primary for who should lead the party. As you know, Justin Trudeau resigned from the leadership of the Liberal Party, and basically, in doing so, resigned as a prime minister. And the new leader of the Liberal Party will be prime minister. The election was held, and it was a landslide. I think he got 86% of the vote, something ridiculous like that. Almost suspiciously large numbers, right? He wins by margins similar to Putin's in Russia. So, but the new leader of the Liberal Party in Canada is Mark Carney. Mark Carney is I think familiar on the global stage for two basically roles he played. One as the central banker, as the head of the Central Bank of Canada in the late 2000s. And the thing about there is that he really was he was at the central bank during the financial crisis, and got a lot of positives in how he handled the great financial crisis. Indeed, Canada did a lot better than he did a lot better in that role than we did in the United States. Canada survived the financial crisis in better shape. It hasn't done well since, but the financial crisis itself, we didn't see bankruptcies, we didn't see big bailouts, we didn't see all of that, and he also didn't. His fiscal policy, his monetary policy, leading up to the financial crisis, was not as irresponsible as in the U.S., and therefore the crisis wasn't that of that significance. It wasn't a big deal. In other words, he got really positive marks on his handling of the financial crisis as the head of the central bank in Canada. I mean, no head of central bank is going to get high marks from me on anything that they do, because I think it's an awful job. It's a job where you can only do harm. You can't really do good, but you can do less harm. And I think the thing about Mark Carney is, in his role as head of central bank, he has done less harm. He then was recruited to be the head of the Bank of England for a 5-year term, a term that typically was going to be 8. He negotiated 5. He's the first and only non-Brit, Mark Carney is a Canadian, non-Brit to serve as the head of the Bank of England in its entire history. That tells you a lot about how the Brits, how highly they thought of him. That is, they really wanted him as the central banker in the UK. He, after a 5-year stint, he renewed it for another 5 years. He was, I think, head of the Bank of England for 10 years. And arguably, again, did the best job you can do as a central banker is not be noticed, not do anything that really pisses the world off. And he managed to get away with that. And he is because of that, he has this reputation of being steady, of being good on economics, although I doubt that's true. And he is coming in to do really 2 things into Canadian Liberal Party. One is to save the Liberal Party. And since he announced he was running for the Liberal Party head, which somewhat coincided with Trump declaring almost war on Canada, or declaring Canada the 51st state, or declaring tariffs on Canada, just demeaning Canada. Since then, the Liberal Party has shot up in the polls. Indeed, pollsters have never seen anything like it, not just in Canada, but anyway. I mean, the Liberal Party was dead. Poilievre and the Conservatives were going to wipe them out. They were going to dominate this election. It wasn't going to be even close. With Carney and with Trump, the Liberal Party has been resurrected. And right now, it's running even with the Conservatives. And I would not be surprised at all if Carney announces quick elections soon, maybe in April or May, and that the Liberal Party wins that election. So all the expectations that everybody had, and they were given, and nobody questioned them, and they, absolutely that the Conservatives in Canada were going to win, and everybody was excited because Poilievre looks like a good guy, and he might do some good things, and all of that. Trump basically destroyed that, and Connie is capitalizing on that. So he's coming in to save the Liberal Party and to save Canada from Trump. Those are his two goals, his two missions, if you will. You know, and whoa, I just got exciting. Twitter just came back. Yeah, Twitter came back. I'm not sure it's real, not sure it's sustainable, but Twitter is back. Anyway, yeah. So as Connie said yesterday, we didn't ask for this fight, but Canadians are always ready for someone else's when someone else drops the gloves. The Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win. And his goal is, you know, he's gonna argue to keep the retaliatory tariffs in place until the Americans show us some respect. So he's willing to shoot Canada in the knees in order to get respect from America. I get that. Lose, and you know, play chicken. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch, but you would think that the Conservatives would benefit from this spat with Trump, but I think the two associated with Trump, people assume that they are, even though Poilievre, I think, is very much against these moves by Trump and is not a MAGA type conservative, but I think a lot of Canadians don't want anybody who even seems like he's similar to Trump or seems like he's similar to the Republican Party right now. They're not interested, and they will revote the Liberals in to avoid that. Connie also said the Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Think about it. If they succeed, they would destroy our way of life. And then he goes into, you know, the evil Americans have private health care. He says, America is not Canada, and Canada will never, ever will be a part of America in any way, shape, or form. So Trump has managed to resurrect the Liberals. Connie could very well, is likely to be the next, not just the current Prime Minister, but the next Prime Minister of Canada. In terms of, like, what kind of a leader he is going to be, you know, we'll see. I think, I don't think he has any particular firm, what do you call it, principled ideas. I think he is a soft pragmatist. I also think that he is probably on economic issues to the right of Trudeau. He will probably move the Liberal Party to what's called blue liberal in Canada, which means more pro-markets. So while he certainly does not have a good economic policies, he'll probably move towards physical conservatism, kind of a centrist attitude, and policies that lean in the direction of conservative preferences, particularly given how strong the Conservatives will probably perform in the elections and could have performed before Trump kind of, you know, boasted the Liberals. So, you know, at least people I'm reading think that he will be, you know, he'll be okay. He won't be great, but he won't be terrible. He'll be a lot better than Trudeau, right? Blue dog Democrats, that's right. So blue dog Democrats, these guys, he will be a blue liberal in a sense that, you know, we will see. We will see how he pans out. But he's not a bleeding heart, woke little fascist like Trudeau. I think he has much more respect for, at least for markets, than Trudeau ever had. And Vincent Geloso, who I think last week I told you about him. He's the economist who said what Canada should do is drop tariffs in response to America. That is, it should do the exact opposite of what Trump is doing and do the exact opposite of what they are doing, which is increase tariffs. He's a Canadian. He is mildly optimistic about Connie and about his prospects. Let's see. All right. One of the things that Trump's action against Ukraine has shown the world, and particularly our allies, is that the United States has a lot more control of battlefield weapon systems than I think anybody really considered or really thought through. It turns out that the United States has basically made the HIMARS, the missiles that the United States sold, the missile systems that the United States sold Ukrainians, basically inoperable. And now a lot of countries are thinking, wait a minute, are my F-35s, do they have a kill switch? Could the United States, if they don't approve of what I do, trash my a gazillion dollars worth of airplanes? What about other sophisticated weapon systems? Which one of them are ultimately being controlled by the Pentagon? And they're not selling me, when they sell the weapon system, that control. I think also, particularly among European allies, but I think this is true, I'm sure in Israel, I hope in Israel, but also across the world, American allies are thinking, how dependent are we on American intelligence? How dependent are we on American, weapons? How dependent are we for survival, for success on the United States? Because the reality is, in this new age, and we don't know how long this new age will last, we cannot trust America. One thing that Trump has done is he's made clear to our allies around the world is that we, the United States of America, cannot be trusted. That takes a lot. But Trump has unique skills that most of us do not. Anyway, Germany is said to receive 35 F-35s. They spent 8.3 billion euro on that in a deal with of course, U.S. manufacturer. I can't remember who makes the F-35. And now they're reconsidering. Maybe they should buy a slightly less sophisticated airplane, a Mirage 2000 from the French, or a Korean jet. Korea has a fourth or fifth generation jet that is not bad. Others, other manufacturers of jets. I think the Swedish Saab makes jets. There might be a market now for non-American weapon systems. And indeed, I think that while Europe is getting ready to spend huge amounts of money on weapon systems and on upgrading its military, it is going to think twice about buying them from the United States. And they are seriously going to consider buying them from, South Korea, maybe Israel, and a lot from European weapons manufacturers. I think if you were buying stocks right now, maybe some Finnish, Swedish. I don't know if the Norwegian makes weapons, but I know the Swedish makes weapons, the Finnish make weapons. Germany has a battle tank. The French have airplanes. They have quite a few weapon systems that the French make. You might do well investing in those companies and maybe shorting as a hedge U.S. weapons manufacturers. Who knows? Switzerland denied reports that its F-35s could be jammed by the United States. They claim that they are autonomous and independent at any time. I hope that's true for their sake. Belgium, chief of defense, said that the F-35 is not a remote control airplane, and therefore it is completely independent of U.S. control. But note that people are wondering. People are wondering. Generally, I think also the sentiment towards the United States and Europe right now is not encouraging in terms of spending a lot of money on American weapon systems. And again, there might be a lot more interest in other countries' weapon systems. I think this would be a boost for South Korea, maybe Israel, if Israel can manufacture enough to actually to produce enough, then it could be. Just as an aside, Trump on Air Force One over the weekend was asked about the stopping the intelligence sharing with Ukrainians as Ukraine got pounded this weekend by Russian missiles with no intelligence heads up warning and no ability to defend themselves. And Trump said that he thinks the U.S. is close to lifting the pause on intelligence. We're close. He says we just about have. We really just about have. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a 0-1 or they're giving them 50% or 25%, 75% of the intelligence they were before, or whether he's waiting until Ukraine and the American delegation meet in Saudi Arabia to discuss, Ukraine's surrender, how that goes, and all that. Notice just curiosity, and I don't know what to make of this, but it is kind of interesting. All these negotiations are happening in Saudi Arabia. I mean, what's up with that? And what is the payoff? What is Saudi getting from this? Anyway, that Trump not committing, kind of saying they're getting the intelligence sharing, kind of not committing one way or the other. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the days to come. In the meantime, Ukraine is struggling, given its reliance, heavy reliance, on U.S. weapon systems that have been, some of which have been shut down, and intelligence, which has been shut down completely, which Ukraine was very reliant on and does not have an alternative to yet. It might gain an alternative, but it doesn't have one. Yet. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. Oh yeah, this one I just wanted to bring up. It's a cool quote. This will be short. It's a cool quote from Dugin. You remember Alexander Dugin? Alexander Dugin is sometimes considered Putin's brain. He's Putin's philosopher. He is the philosopher of Russian nationalism. If you want to understand Russia, if you want to understand the kind of the intellectual context, the philosophical underpinning of what drives them, including starting this war, Dugin is the guy to read if you can stomach it. He's a really nasty piece of work. He's a combination of fascist, Christian Orthodox, religionist, and postmodernist. So he is a right-wing postmodernist. So in that sense, a subjectivist, but quite the witch doctor to Putin's Attila. Anyway, this is what, and you might find this familiar, you might find this recognizable. This is what Dugin wrote in his 1997 book, The Foundations of Geopolitics. This is kind of advice to what Russia should do. 1997, he wrote this, right? Quote, Russia should introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremists, racists, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the United States. it would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics. I mean, it's like Dugin wrote the script for the last 20 years in American politics, certainly the last 10. I mean, and there's plenty of evidence, certainly in Europe, but I think in the United States as well, of Russian financing of radical leftist groups. We heard about the Russian financing of podcasters in the US. So, you know, Russia's probably been implementing this strategy. I mean, I would probably get some Russian money if I was willing to sell my soul. So they've been, and I don't think they care. It's not like they support the right. They support everybody. Anybody who's going to create havoc. Anybody who's going to, you know, shake things up in a significant way. They will throw money at it, throw support at it, hack, bots on Twitter. Their point is to disintegrate American society. That is their purpose. That is what they want to achieve. And if this was their strategy, if they took Dugin seriously, then you have to say they have achieved and done better than they could have ever imagined. I mean, the reality is that they have the most Russia-friendly president in history, you know, that I can remember. Yeah, I think in history, it's fair to say. Most Russia-friendly. They have achieved isolationist tendencies in American politics, and they have definitely radicalized or bifurcated American politics into ethnic, social, racial conflicts. Extremist groups are thriving. Racists are thriving. I mean, did you see that? What's his name? The big part. Rogan was interviewing another anti-Semitic nut. I mean, it's just and you know the anti-Semitism, the kind of normalizing Hitler is becoming a part of the right's agenda. It's becoming part of what they're doing. You know, some big names are doing this. I don't think we could have imagined that. Well, I could, because I saw through Charlottesville when others claimed that, oh, no, that never happened. Anyway, that is Dugin. Amazingly accurate prediction or prescription for what Russia should do if they want to destabilize the United States, and it seems to all be coming true. All right, USAID. USAID has now been placed squarely under the State Department. They have officially now, this is not just Doge, this is official now, from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. They have officially canceled 83% of the programs at USAID. It's not clear how much money that is. I didn't get, he didn't disclose the dollar amount, but they've canceled 83% of the programs of USAID. That means 5,200 contracts have been canceled. And we're talking about tens of billions of dollars. At least that's what they're claiming. Now, let me say, whether this is legal is an interesting question. I don't know in the budgeting process whether Congress actually allocates for the contracts or whether it just allocates money for USAID. And if it just allocates money for USAID, I think, and it leaves it up to USAID to decide how to allocate it, this is good. That the USAID mostly does global charity work. and the U.S. government should not be doing global charity work. Now, Rubio says that in consultation with Congress, we intend for the remaining 18% of programs that we are keeping, he says about 1,000 contracts, to now be administrated more effectively under the State Department. So it'll be interesting what they consider, what the standard is for keeping them. He says it's the national interest of the United States, but what that constitutes, what that means, how that's determined, all of that is information we don't have because we don't have a breakdown of which programs are being shuttered and which programs are being kept. But it's something to keep an eye on. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how Congress deals with this. And is Congress going to allocate a lot less money to USAID in upcoming budgets? That is, are those tens of billions of dollars actually going to be cut by Congress from government spending? Because that, at the end of the day, is going to be what counts. To be determined, because Republicans cannot put together a budget. There is no budget that's going to be proposed this month. So there's going to be a continuing resolution, which just basically continues everything at current levels. How does that affect USAID? Are they going in there and removing a few tens of billions for USAID? I don't know. To be determined. But for now, it seems like USAID is a goner. 1,000 contracts are remaining, but they will be allocated by the State Department based on the principle of Americans' national interest. I just wish that they knew what those were. That would be good if they knew what they were. All right. Trump coming in to the White House, there was always this idea that Trump had an enemies list. He had a list of people he was going to get back at, people he didn't like, people who had done bad things to him, or at least he perceived them to have done bad things to him. Indeed, the people he has placed in the Justice Department, at the FBI, do not seem to be that concerned about justice or prosecution of actual criminals. They might very well be mainly concerned about addressing perceived injustices against Trump. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Too early to tell. But Trump did sign an executive order late last week, an executive order that targets 2 law firms, rescinds the security clearance, so makes it very difficult for them to work on government contracts, and limits their ability to be in federal court. That's not clear if that's even, if he has the power to do that. These 2 law firms, one of them worked for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and he blames them for the famous, Russian memo that blamed Russian interference for his for controlling him and all of that. And the other one, other law firm, Covington and Burling, represents Jack Smith, who was the special counsel appointed during Biden, and who brought criminal charges against Trump in 2 cases. So he's basically, this executive order is clearly retribution against 2 legal firms that he doesn't like. And he directed Attorney General Pam Bondi, right, Director of National Security Tulsi Gabbard, and U.S. agency chiefs to restrict access of lawyers, of Perkins Coie, this is the firm that represented Hillary, to federal buildings, and he ended their security clearance. That is nothing but retribution and revenge and ticking off that enemies list. If I have crossed, anybody out there has crossed Donald Trump in any way over the last few years, beware. Beware. I think I'm too small to be messed with, but he's out to get the people he perceives as his enemies. No question about that. Absolutely no question about that. Let me do this one too. There's another example of this. Let me just find this. Yeah, this is another example. This one is more swampy. This is an example of the Trump swamp. The Trump swamp. So after 2021, January 6th in 2021, Capital One, the bank, decided they did not want to bank Trump. They basically came to the conclusion that he was a liability, that they found what happened January 6th to be offensive, and they didn't want to bank him. You would think banks have a right to decide who to bank and who not to bank if it's their independent decision. And there's no evidence that it's anything but their independent decision. It basically closed accounts in January 2021 of the Trump organization. Trump then sued them, or the Trump organization did, not Trump himself, right? Now, as a legal matter, they really have no case. Capital One should be able to easily get the case dismissed because, you know, they get to choose their clients. They get to choose their clients. But it probably doesn't matter in this case. The reality is, and this is implicit, never explicit, but the reality is that if Capital One doesn't settle the suit and pay up, then the Trump administration will move to block the merger of Capital One with Discover, which is in the process right now. And the Trump administration can generally, easily make life pretty unpleasant for Capital One. Right? So, you know, this is swamp, gangster capitalism, or no, gangsterism. There's no capitalism there. Gangsterism. This is pull peddlers, the worst kind of pull peddling. I think this is how Trump got his lawsuits settled with, what was it, CNBC and a bunch of other places, all with the threat of, you know, I'm going to be president. I could really hurt you. Really hurt you. So yeah, this is very similar to the whole debanking scandal that happened under Obama and then Biden, and it is cronyism of its worst, swamp animalism at its worst, just horrific. Another example of the swamp. You know, the steel tariffs that Trump passed in his first term and then has passed this time have not gone unnoticed by, you know, various, what do you call it, lobbyists. Lobbyists. And, you know, steel is really gone all in on heavily lobbying for these tariffs and promoting these tariffs. You know, his Peter Navarro, the guy who is the number one tariff supporter, particularly when it comes to things like steel tariffs, this guy has a long history of being funded by the steel industry. So he did a documentary called Death by China that built up his reputation as a China hawk and a tariff hawk and a steel hawk. And it was financed by, of all companies, this is tragic because it's such a great company in its history, Nucor, the U.S.'s largest steelmaker today. Trump's trade representative current trade representative, was until recently a partner at a law firm, which represented steel companies, and is a protege of Bob Leitzinger, whatever his name is, his first-term trade representative, Trump's first-term trade representative, who made a fortune as a lawyer representing U.S. steel. And, you know, the steel industry has a long history of trying to manipulate politics in its favor and lobbying. It's been incredibly successful under Trump. And there are a lot of people within the Trump administration who have benefited enormously from this. You know, just more swamp, just more examples of there's no draining the swamp here. No draining the swamp at all. No intention to drain the swamp. No plans to drain the swamp. It never were. This is all basically just shifting the swamp around. You know, creating new animals, creating new beneficiaries of all the, you know, the money that flows through the swamp. Anyway, just quickly on immigration. It is interesting to see. Remember when there was that fight between Vivek and Elon on the one hand and MAGA on the other hand about H-1Bs? And Elon and Vivek were trying to make the argument H-1Bs are great and bringing in Indians and foreigners to work in the United States is really good as long as they were, of course, high intelligence, high quality. And that was all good, and that was fantastic. And MAGA was like, no, this is great. And I told you at the time, you can go back and rewind and find it. I told you at the time that MAGA would win. MAGA stood on principle. The xenophobes, they don't like foreigners. They think foreigners take their job and lower their wages, and they would not compromise. And, Bannon has called H-1Bs a total and complete scam to destroy the American worker. Now, it turns out that over the last month, 2 months, since this happened, that tech people supporting Trump have slowly shifted their position. You notice Vivek was out. Vivek was basically dropped left the Trump administration, escaped Doge. And Andreessen and Musk and all the others have basically dramatically moderated their view on H-1B. And indeed, it seems like the administration, to the extent that they propose new legislation around immigration or, pursue immigration reform, it's going to be reform that dramatically changes and shrinks H-1B like visas, right? So, for example, you're going to see ICE go into private companies and check up on the H-1B people and who they are and what they are and what they're doing. You're going to see much more aggressive permitting of H-1B. So this is a quote from a latest report from the Justice Department. Officers will be able to deny or revoke approval for legitimate petitions if an employer, even a third-party employer, where an H-1B beneficiary is working, refuses to speak with officers, does not answer to the officer's satisfaction, or fails to answer a written request in a certain time frame. Employers should prepare for USCIS site visits, even at third-party work locations and employees' homes, home offices, ensuring all documentation aligns with the petition and that internal immigration compliance teams are trained to address inquiries. Indeed, the Trump Justice Department has just announced and have directed federal prosecutors to prioritize immigration-related cases above other things. According to the Justice Department, according to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, the nation faces historical threats from widespread illegal immigration. And immigration enforcement now tops the DOJ list of prosecution priorities. Quote, the Department of Justice should use all available criminal statutes to combat the flood of illegal immigrants that took place over the last 4 years and continue to support the Department of Homeland Security. But of course, this spills over into, are you abusing your legal status, like H-1Bs? We have implicitly, at least, this is a war on immigration. They're coming afterwards. I mean, again, Trump was serious in his attacks on immigration. Attorney generals all around the country, Justice Department employees are being told, you better get tough. And you better get tough on employers and on employees. Expect many more site visits. Business groups, of course, are up in arms. They're pissed off at this. They're trying to, here's another swampy thing, they're trying to lobby to protect themselves. A lot of business owners are saying that the rumors of raids are having as much impact as raids themselves. People are panicking. Agricultural industry is panicking. You can imagine the construction industry panicking. Some manufacturers are panicking. Anybody who's employing illegal immigrants is panicking right now. It doesn't matter. As Trump's representative says, quote, no amount of lobbying from certain business sectors will change what the new GOP and President Trump are determined to implement. That is a war on working people, a war on production. Of course, we know what the long-term impact of this will be: higher home prices, fewer homes because there'll be less construction. Businesses are going to struggle because they can't find employees. There'll be less production, and of course, the rights of people are going to be violated left and right. But it doesn't matter. Trump promised to abuse employers and employees, primarily of illegal, but it'll spill over to legal as well, and to reduce the number of immigrants into this country. And there's every reason to believe that in spite of the lobbying of business, he will indeed be successful. All right, that is a shortened version, certainly shorter than maybe usual. The news for Monday, March 10th. We will pick this up again tomorrow with more news. We have a bunch of Super Chat questions. There is, I think, enough time for additional Super Chat questions if you want. So please consider. We've raised just short of the first hour goal. We've got still 6 minutes to make the goal. So $18 to make our goal would be great. And then, of course, there's a second hour, which is another $250. All right, let's jump in with our questions. Oh, quick reminder. Alex Epstein is a sponsor of the show. AlexEpstein.substack.com. AlexEpstein.substack.com. Best content, best material. You will know so much more about environmentalism, energy, the grid, fossil fuels in the United States and globally, really. Then once you read Alex, I mean, his stuff is so informative, so succinct, so presented, so well principled. Best thinker and commentator out there on these issues. Go sign up, alexepstein.substack.com. And the Ayn Rand Institute. Ayn Rand Institute is still promoting their scholarships for OCON. I don't think a lot of you have applied, and I don't quite get it. What is the cost of applying? It takes 5 minutes. Apply for a scholarship. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But if you get it, whoa, you get to come to OCON. And that's fantastic. So, OCON is going to be in Boston, over the 4th of July weekend, July 1 to July 5. It's going to be a blast. I will be there. You can play poker with me. We can, watch me exercise at the gym. That's a little creepy. But you can also come and listen to amazing lectures and hang out with amazing people. A lot of Yaron Brook Show supporters, followers, subscribers at Ocon, and you can join them, and it'll be a lot of fun. We usually do one show live from like a classroom at Ocon, and those are a lot of fun as well. So you guys should all show up. Apply for scholarship. AynRand.org/start here to find information. AynRand.org/start here. All right, and let me also say I am doing a seminar in London on March 29th, coming up, less than 3 weeks away, on, how to apply objectivism, how to apply egoism. It's called The Rational Egoist Guide to Self-Confidence, Success, and Relationships. We'll be covering, how to align your decisions with your values for success and happiness, and how to really think about being selfish when it comes to your career, relationships, sex, even personal growth, confidence, power, just life. I think you'll get a lot out of it. It'll be a small group. Tom has commitments. Change the commitments. How often do you have an opportunity to come to a seminar like this? It'll be Saturday 29th, probably afternoon, 1 to 5 in the afternoon. And if Tom says, no, I can come from 11 to, maybe I'll change the time. But probably 1 to 5. We'll rent a classroom somewhere, central London, so you can take the tube in, you can take the train in. It's pretty easy to get to. It's £250 for 4 hours. I think it'll be a lot of fun. A lot of this, I intend to be interactive and me answering a lot of your questions and you bringing up issues and challenges that you're facing at work or relationship-wise or other stuff, and just trying to work out, what does egoism have to say? What does egoism have to say in terms of how one should approach these kind of issues? So, £250, central London, in 2.5 weeks. So it's a Saturday. It'll be a blast. If you want to register, you go to Yaron Brook Show, one word, yaronbrookshow.com, and you just scroll down to the section that lists all my events. And one of those events was March 29th, and there is a link there to register. Register today. There's a clickable link. Other than that, all my other events in the UK are private events. So I'll be speaking at a lot of high schools in the UK. I'll also be, and this is not listed on our website, but I'll also be speaking at Parliament to parliamentarians from the House of Lords and from Parliament itself. That'll be on Monday the 24th. I'll be talking at 4 different schools. I'll also be talking at one of the think tanks, Prosperity Institute, I think, in London. Those of you, here's one more announcement, and then I'll answer questions. Those of you who live in North Carolina, I don't know if anybody lives in North Carolina. I know a few people live in North Carolina. Anyway, those of you who live in North Carolina, I am doing a public event in North Carolina a week from today. On March 17th, I will be in Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington. I know Wilmington is a little bit in the middle of nowhere, but if you can make it to Wilmington and you'd like to attend my talk, it's basically the moral case for finance. It's at the business school, and you can find information again at Yaron Brook Show, one word, .com. About the event. It's in the evening, 6 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. And it should be fun. So if you live in Wilmington or live close by to Wilmington, please come. It'll be a good event. Lots of, primarily students in the business school, but it is open to the public. That's the one public event I am doing next week. Other events to be announced. There will be, I think, a public event in Michigan, but although it will be truly in the middle of nowhere in Midland, Michigan, so in the very north of Michigan. But that will be in April. All right, what else? I think we're good in terms of announcements. I think we're done. All right, let's jump in. Dave has come in with two $50 questions, comments. Thank you, Dave. Really, really, really appreciate it. Dave says, how has Trump impacted your life? He's made me, just in terms of worried about the future of America, about the future for me, for my son, for future for young people out there. He hasn't directly impacted any particular action other than what I talk about on the show on a regular basis. So he's provided me with a lot of content. But because I don't have a regular job in a regular industry, and I don't pay federal taxes because I live in Puerto Rico, I'm not directly affected by most of what Trump does. He's made me angrier than I've ever been. A friend of mine told me yesterday, she hadn't listened to the show in a long time, and she listened to the show last week, and she said, Yaron, you're really angry. So he's made me angry. He pisses me off in ways that almost nobody does, because his betrayals are so deep and meaningful. The stupidity around tariffs, but even worse, the backstabbing of Ukraine, the negotiating with Hamas behind Israel's back. I mean, Biden pissed me off. I was angry then. Trump is worse in many respects. So, he's made me angrier. That's the primary way in which he's impacted my life. It takes more and he's made my wife more anxious about the future. Made us all more anxious about the future, right? It's just, that's the kind of impact. All of us are more anxious about what's the future? What's the future like? And how can we tolerate the injustices that America, of all countries, our hope, that America is inflicting on the world. America, the country I immigrated to, for a reason. Okay, Dean also asks, also $50. Thank you, Dean. Do you think anti-conceptualists are necessarily incapable of identifying the actual nature of reality, which is fundamental to understanding causality, especially when it comes to judging people, politicians? Look, by very definition that they're anti-conceptualists, they cannot identify anything fundamental. They cannot identify cause and effect unless it's very superficial. Now, it's not that they're incapable, because they can always become conceptual. Ultimately, that's a choice. But as long as they're anti-conceptual, they cannot understand. This is why you might have conversations with people. You might do a really good job laying out the facts, laying out evidence, laying it all out, and it just does not penetrate at all. And that's because it doesn't matter. They cannot go deep. They cannot understand. And it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're necessarily evading any particular thing right now. It's that they can't get to a certain level of abstraction. And they have to choose to do that. So they're evading the need to do that, which is the ultimate sin. But yeah. Oh, I forgot the most important announcement. Greg Salameri is joining me tonight, 7 p.m. East Coast time. 7 p.m. East Coast time tonight. Greg, I don't know what we're going to talk about. A bunch of different things. We'll definitely talk about Trump. Greg is going to argue that Trump is not, or put it this way, that it's not right to identify Trump as a pragmatist. So he's going to contradict me. How about that? I'm going to have a philosopher tell me I'm wrong. That's good. So it's going to be great. I'm eager to hear how Greg is going to characterize, if you will, Trump. And we're going to talk about lots of different things. Richard Hanania, racism in America today, and just there's just a lot of things that Greg has I think unique perspective. He's got a unique philosophical mind, and it's going to be really fascinating. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I know you guys really have a good time when Greg's on. So bring your questions, bring a lot of your philosophical questions, a lot of your questions you might not have gotten a satisfactory response from me, things you disagree with me on. But again, we've got a world-class philosopher joining us tonight. Bring it on. Bring it on. All right, Clark, does the fact that jealousy plays such a large role in politics and interpersonal relationship show that mankind is still in its infancy? Well, yes, but you have to, I mean, I wouldn't call it jealousy. There's a sense in which jealousy is not a bad thing. I'd say envy. Envy is the bad thing. So the envy, the resentment towards somebody else for having something, the resentment of somebody else for being good, for achieving, that is the real evil in our world. And I think it is. It's partially, to a large extent, a sign that we live in a culture with very little self-esteem. Now, I think we're getting worse. That is, I don't think there was as much jealousy, envy 100 years ago in America than there is today. And so I think that, what you're seeing is, as the American sense of life dissipates, as any kind of sense of confidence, and as self-esteem in our culture goes away, partially because we've been taught that self-esteem is something that comes from the outside, that everybody has it, that it's just about ribbons and stuff. We've completely eviscerated the concept. But that self-confidence, that American kind of confidence and self-esteem and sense of life is gone. You're seeing jealousy and envy that have always existed in human society come back. So what we're seeing really is that the philosophy of enlightenment, which gave people a sense of self-esteem, is in decline. Is in decline. And in that sense, there's still a long way to go. Tom, do you think conservative parties in parts of the world are being damaged by association with MAGA? Look at Canada. I think a crackup is coming. I know a few Canadians who make it clear they dislike Trump thoughts. I definitely think they are. Some conservative parties have made, really try to make the case of distancing themselves from Trump. Certainly, the head of the Conservative Party in Germany, seems to have tried to really distance himself, try to lead Europe away from reliance on America. At least that's the verbiage we're hearing. Even Polivar in Canada has made attempts carefully because he has to juggle. He does have a MAGA constituency. There are some MAGA people in Canada. And he has tried to move away from Trump and make the case. So, yes, I do think. I think that, sadly, somebody like Millet has done the opposite. That is, he keeps doubling down on his relationship with Trump. I think that's a huge mistake for him for lots of reasons, primarily of integrity. But it's a huge mistake for Millet and shows a weakness, a real weakness there. Maybe he's afraid to be alone on the world scene. I don't know. But he is alone because nobody else does what he does. So, yes, I think Trump brand right now is toxic. And look, he's not a conservative by any definition of conservative, even though conservative has always been a murky definition. By no definition is Trump a conservative, other than he has certain aspects of nationalism, but he doesn't even really believe in that. Mary Eileen, what periodicals do you subscribe to, and what value do you get from each? Oh, God. What do I subscribe to? I mean, periodicals, not many anymore because you get so much from Substacks. Like, I subscribe to a lot of Substacks. Periodicals, probably The Atlantic, because you get in-depth mainstream stuff. So it's interesting to see what the thinking of kind of the mainstream left, mainstream right is. So it's a very right of left, center left, center right kind of publication. Mainly center left, but some center right. I subscribe to Foreign Policy, again, Foreign Affairs, I think. Again, very mainstream, very left of center, but good to know what they're thinking. And then I have a bunch of Substacks, some like Noah Smith and that are kind of left of center, then others like Hanania and God, I can't remember all the names, but a bunch of others that are more right of center. So just an array, just to give me an array in terms of, and then I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and I just scan all the kind of different news sources for information. But in terms of periodicals, the heyday of periodicals is long gone because most people, most good writers now are publishing stuff on Substack or some kind of blog, and then you can get all the information about what they've published and when they've published it by subscribing or through Twitter, and that's how I get it. So I subscribe to a lot of right of center people on Substack. Oi, hello from Tel Aviv. Hey, Oi. I will be in Tel Aviv soon, a few weeks. Wes, thank you for the sticker, $50. Really, really, really appreciate that. That brings us way closer to our second hour goal. Thank you, anonymous user, for the sticker. Stephen Harper. I saw Jonathan Honing earlier with a sticker. And yeah, there's Jonathan Honing. And let's see if we can catch anybody else. I think that's it. All right. Jeffrey says, thank you, Jeffrey. Is there a proper role for lobbyists? Yes, absolutely. In the world in which we live, absolutely. And the proper role of lobbyists is self-defense. It is to mitigate the damage politicians and regulators are inflicting on their company or industry. And it's crucial because left alone, Washington would crush industry and individual companies. So you have to lobby in self-defense. The problem is, and this is the inappropriate lobbying is the lobbying to screw your competitors, the lobbying to get subsidies, the lobbying to get favors from the government. That is never appropriate. That is never appropriate. The problem is that you can't separate the two out. That is often to defend yourself is going to involve some favoritism. Or it can easily slip into that, particularly if you have unprincipled lawyers, lobbyists. But that's the cost you pay for a mixed economy. A mixed economy necessitates lobbying for self-defense. That lobbying in self-defense almost always leads to lobbying for favors, lobbying for protection, lobbying for goodies. So you can't win in a mixed economy. Good does not happen. The bad wins out. All right. Whoa, a lot of $5, $10 questions. Okay, questions from now on, 20. Otherwise, don't ask because I am short on time and restricted here on time. Okay, Doodle Money. You seem to imply on some of your interviews that in a fully capitalist society, a few losers might starve to death once in a while, but that's not something we should worry about. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee the well-being of every human being in a rational society. Some people are, for a variety of reasons, just not going to make it, and so be it. It doesn't worry me. It's a very, very small number. Lynn, it was a pleasure to see you in Revital in PR recently. Thank you for the visit. Yeah, that was fun. Sorry it was such a short in and out, but it was great. I'm glad I had the opportunity to show you our condo and to show you our art collection. We'll see you at Ocon. Roland, X app works fine from Switzerland. Yeah, and it's working now. It just it had boycotted Puerto Rico and Texas for a while there. Equal to reality. You can use detector to see if a service is down and often why. Thank you. I'll check that out next time. Liam, it's interesting growing up and learning that most adults are not smart. I had my suspicion as a kid, but I don't think the situation was this dire. I agree with you. And then you meet people like politicians, and then you discover, God, are they not smart? God, do they not know what they're doing? Yeah, I've had the opportunity to meet senators and congressmen, and man, are they not impressive. Fender Harper says, quote, this is a quote, explain what objectivists mean when they say free will means the ability to focus on things. Is it a sort of meritocracy where people who focus on maths should be rewarded, people who focus on drugs should be punished? Well, it's a meritocracy of reality in a sense, but it's not just ability to focus on things. It's the ability to focus. It's a choice to focus. Free will is primarily that choice to put your mind in the mode of focusing on reality. On, the focusing on what's in front of you. And yes, reality is such, and human beings are such, that if you choose drugs in some way versus math, is your example, yeah, the drugs will hurt you, the math will help you. That's certainly part of it. Part of it is focusing your mind enough to be able to know what choices are good for you and what choices are bad for you. What choices are value and what choices are disvalues. By the way, friend Harper, that would be a great question for Greg. All right, thank you to Esoteric Dichotomy for the sticker and Kim Ziki for the sticker. James, I don't see Trump shackling AI. Could we still experience rapid economic growth from that one industry despite all the rest being so heavily controlled? I don't know that Trump would not shackle AI. It depends on who was whispering in his ear. I do worry about Trump favoring AI in the hands of a few large companies. Those are the people who have his ear, after all. But yes, I mean, look, Trump will do a lot of damage. But like most presidents, the damage tends to be in what could have been lost potential rather than actually driving us into a Great Depression, right? Actually making life for each one of us really, really bad. So I don't expect, there's a good chance that things like AI will mitigate a lot of the bad things and other tech and other innovations will mitigate a lot of the bad things that Trump is doing. But there's also a chance that it won't, just because of the scale of disruption that Trump is engaged in. Roland, Trump seems to be the last thing that's happened to the leftists around the world in quite a while. The best thing that's happened to leftists around the world. Yeah, probably. Probably. I mean, he's discrediting a lot of kind of so-called right-wing political parties. Harper, what do we actually get from voting Republican? Rounding up hardworking immigrants and abortion bans. Maybe mild tax cuts and fleeting deregulation. You got it. It's exactly right. And it's exactly how it's played out. And I predicted it would play out. Andy, Do you have any principled way of addressing whether a crime, disorder situation should be responded to by police, courts, or military blanket force cartel situation? Yeah, I'd have to think about it. I don't know if I have a principle, but certainly scale. Like you wouldn't bring the military in unless police couldn't handle it. That is, the scale of whatever was happening was truly threatening to individual rights, to peace, the peaceful living of Americans. The scale of the arms, the scale of the threat was such that the police couldn't handle it, and therefore you needed the National Guard, or you needed a military force to do it. And then in terms of everything else, I just say the scale and severity of the violent threat. The greater the scale, the greater the violent threat, the more likely, the more you have to escalate in terms of the degree in which you're dealing with it. It's the best I have off the cuff. Michael, looks like Israel is getting tougher on Gaza because they think Trump has their back. I doubt it. I mean, if Israel was tough on Gaza, the tanks would be inside Gaza and they'd be roaring through and destroying. Yes, they did shut off electricity today. Woohoo. They haven't shut off water yet. And Hamas has enough aid for who knows when. And the fact is that Israel doesn't know that Trump has their back because Trump is being negotiating with Hamas directly behind their back. And the guy who's sent to negotiate does not seem like the smartest guy on the block. And so, anyway, yeah, I don't know that I would call what Israel is doing anything in the region of tough. Enric, what does USA intelligence consist of? Oh, I mean, human intelligence, spies, listening. They basically track all internet traffic. They basically potential track all telephone conversations, all emails, texts, anything they've got a backdoor to. I don't know if they can access WhatsApp. Obviously, satellites that both do listening, but also do pictures, video of very, very accurate, but also listening stations in different places around the world, cell towers with listening stations, all kinds of stuff like that. And then, of course, spies and lookout stations and any kind of human intelligence. I'm sure I'm missing stuff. Michael, subject, Ayn Rand was worried about flying because she viewed society as decaying and air safety would become an issue. It's happening now. I don't know. I'm still not afraid of flying. Pilots are still competent. There's a lot of incentive not to crash. And I don't see any kind of trend towards less safety in spite of the one accident in Washington, D.C. I think the others all involved small planes, and small planes will always be riskier. I think the one, if we start seeing passenger planes dropping, I start worrying, but so far it's been one in the last 20 years or something like that, some ridiculously low number. I'm not panicking yet. Harper Campbell, did Plato seek to destroy man's mind like Kant did? He just as good at it? No, I don't think so at all. So again, a great question to ask Greg Salmieri. He is a Plato expert. So no, I don't think Plato had that intention. I tend to think of Plato as being more benevolent, but again, Greg is the right guy to ask because I think Greg disagreed with me on interpretation I had of Plato in terms of altruism. So we're going to bring that up in the interview today. So anything related to ancient philosophy, ask Greg tonight. All right, not your average algorithm. If Trump had been unchastened that day, would it have brought us another few decades, or would his supporters have only grown in number rapidly, further accelerating our collapse into fascism? Assuming you're meaning January 6th, if he had been Yeah, I don't know what that means. Oh, assassinated. Assassinated, who knows? That's kind of alternative history. I don't know what the outcome of something like that would have been. Would it have radicalized his people even more? Who would have stood in his space? I don't know, and I don't think there's much point in speculating. I don't think generally assassinating political leaders leads ultimately in the long run to positive outcomes. Not your average algorithm. In the 90s, even politicians understood that free trade was the right approach. We got NAFTA. Was the Milton Friedman direct influence? Yeah, I mean, you're saying even politicians, even leftist politicians, even Democrats believed in free trade. That was Friedman's influence, Rand's influence, Hayek's influence, Mises' influence. That was the era coming out of the 70s where free market thinkers, free market ideas had a lot more resonance with people and resulted in the election of Thatcher and Reagan and brought to the forefront a lot of good economists and got them on TV and got them exposure. It didn't last long because economics, it was all economics. They needed to really think about Ayn Rand's philosophy, which they never did. They even from Rand, they mostly took economic liberty and nothing more. Well, they took more from her than that, but it didn't filter into politics. Tom, lots more U.S. citizens applying for British citizenship. New figures show, do you expect emigration to the U.S. to drop because of Trump? Well, yes, because I think he's going to limit it. But in terms of desire, look, I think it's still true that even with Trump, the United States is a place a lot of people want to live. The UK is in decline, so maybe some Americans want to become UK citizens, but I don't think that's going to be a mass movement, not to the UK. The UK is struggling and problematic, and with Starmer, I don't know how much better it's going to get. So exactly where people go and how they go depends on how bad things get and relative to other countries. But yeah, I think Americans are more upset by what's happening in America than foreigners who still desire to come to America because they see all the upside here. Mokanu, Romania barred the pro-Russian frontrunner of the presidential elections due to him not upholding democracy. When does one lose the right to run for office? I think one loses the right to run for office when one is explicitly advocating for the end of the political system that makes it possible for you to run the office. Now, I don't know if that's the case with this guy in Romania. I haven't followed the story very closely. I should. I need to. So I will kind of ramp up my knowledge of what's going on there. But if you are an explicit authoritarian, then yeah, it's quite legitimate not to have you on. But look, in the end, bar him from office or not bar him from office, if the majority of Romanians, if that's what they want, that's what they're going to get. So I generally don't think barring somebody from running for office is the right thing to do, even if they're explicitly an authoritarian. It gets very tricky to define when somebody is an authoritarian. So it's better just not to bar people from office unless it's an ideology you're clearly at war with. Vandy, $2 to let you know that Twitter is still spotty. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Twitter. It's working fine right now, for what it's worth. Here. Friend Harper, asking, and thank you, Vandy, asking that last super chat because someone in the YBS Discord asked. Well, ask them to come and ask it of Greg. And Phil, good time to buy US All Share Index, I think. No, I will. Why? Because it's down. It could still go down 10% easily, 15%, 20%. And to the extent that the All Share Index, I don't know, is weighted towards market cap, you're still buying the what do you call it? The 7 stocks that have massive market caps and valuations that are in many respects ridiculous. So, but who knows how bad things could get and how low the stock market could get. So I would I don't buy on dips. I buy and hold. And I don't know that, NASDAQ now is down 4%. Does that mean it's going to go up 4%? NASDAQ. This is good for you to remember. Starting in March of 2000, March 2000. Over the next year and a bit, the NASDAQ, same NASDAQ, went down 80%, 80%, and didn't recover back to its high until 13 years later. 13 years. So if you're going to buy on a dip, then wait for the dip to get deep. This isn't a deep dip. Remember, this is a dip off of historical highs, which were justified by unbelievable optimism of Trump. No. Now, again, don't follow my investment advice. Generally, I don't give investment advice. It could be that now's the best time ever to buy the NASDAQ. I don't know. I wouldn't do it for whatever that's worth. All right, guys, I have to run. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing right now. And like the show. Press that like button, thumbs up, like button. That really, really, really helps with the algorithm. And I will see you tonight at 7 p.m. with Greg Salamieri. Don't forget, join us then. See you then. Bye, everybody.